Hello, welcome to our weekly transits. And wow, we got an interesting week. Definitely, definitely. There's a lot of movement about to happen. And let me get this out of my way. It's not in your way, it's in my way. Anyway, oh gosh, when when I look at a chart, I mean, it could be a natal chart, it could be, a transit chart, doesn't matter. It's like you have to just kind of have some little rule of thumb of tuning in to, like, what am I looking at here? So, um, what I try to do is can I have a little rule of thumb here? I kind of disregard the ascendant at the moment because it just doesn't matter. If I'm looking at a birth chart, I try to look at planet things first because I don't know if birth time's accurate. So I kind of put the ascendant stuff in the house placement secondary at kind of the moment. So I first sort of look in and I see, where's the sun? That's the vital force of everything. That's the reason for the season. Pardon the pun. Um, but so I get a view of the sun and then see where it's at, what's going on. It's like we know Mercury's always floating around it. We know Venus is always fairly close. And then I look to see the moon, more or less. That's kind of just like a first thing. I kind of look sun, and then unless I go down a rabbit hole like this one, I see Mercury retrograde getting, backing up into the sun. So I'm seeing like, oh, Mercury's gonna be combust real soon, in a few days. It's heading toward the sun is heading toward it. So we know that it'd be a matter of a few days that we're going to have that fusion of Sun and Mercury in Sag. Okay. So then here's where I start going down little rabbit holes. It's like, okay, I go, part of my brain then goes Sag. Oh, well, that's where it would be the detriment of Mercury because Mercury likes to be in Gemini, right? So it's like opposite of that. So that's not the best place for it. And then it's getting fused with the sun. So we can expect maybe a lot of over the top exaggeration, um, or big things, or bloviating, or blowing things out of proportion, or any kind of combination of that type of energy. Then we go look and see that it happens to be opposing Jupiter. And very interesting, kind of like a mutual reception because Jupiter, rules um, let's say Mercury, and Mercury likes to be where, it likes to be in Gemini, and then Jupiter likes to be, in Sag. So it would be much happier, as one of its rulers there. So they're kind of mutually, what is it called? Dispositive or no, mutually mutual reception. There we go. Mercury and Jupiter right now. So anyway, that's just going to make things larger or um, add to the add to the stimulation, add to the amount of things coming in at us right now. So that's going to be, like this is it's already heating up. We don't have to wait the 2.5 days or whatever. It is already in this opposition here. See, and as they get closer, it's just going to be, right on that. Mercury is going to hit that first. You'll see tomorrow when it's at 16, it'll go quickly past that, and then the sun over there. Anyway, so this is kind of how my mind starts to look at this. So I look at the sun and I see, because that's going to be, the major energy for all of us. And then when we have, the planet Mercury, which is, oh gosh, so sped up these days, I mean, all of us have technology, cell phones, devices, social media accounts. Um, it's just gone really, really far, really fast. So anyway, that just kind of adds that to me. Then I'll go look at the moon and because the moon sets our mood, and we know every 2.5 days it changes sign. And this week we start out with the moon in Capricorn. So kind of good is, coming off of Monday into Tuesday, it's like sets the serious tone and the responsibility, and I must do this, and let's get this in order, and it's the beginning of the week, and I got to get this, it's a good time now that Mercury's retro to get this done and put these things in place. And yeah, so it's like a nice responsible part of the equation that we can just, I don't know, we just start to feel that way, this is sort of sets the mood and tone of things. Okay, then I just start looking out from there. I kind of look at the outer planets last, unless there's something about to happen, which I'm looking, going on from the moon, just kind of just start, going around. And then here's Venus about to change signs. And then when it changes signs, it's going to conjunct Pluto. Okay, so like this is interesting. We got a couple really close conjunctions, Sun and Mercury this week, Venus and Pluto this week. Okay, so again, then I kind of look around and just get a just an eye full of anything else. Noting here, like I've got, we've got Mars about ready to slow down and turn retrograde. Mars over here is in Leo, and it's going to go retrograde in a couple days. It's Friday, I think. Um, and then it won't be back. It's not going to move forward until May 4th. So it's going to retrograde until February 25th, and it's going to retrograde all the way back to 17 Cancer. So we have that Mars energy loving to be in the sister sign of Leo. So we got some antagonism. We got things stirred up. Mars, it's like, yes, you know, ooh, I got some words, I got some drama, I got some oomph, I got some stuff going on here. I've got some action, I got some drive, I got some energy. In spite of Mercury retrograde, fine. It's like, fine, yeah, I'll go over and do it again. It's in a sister sign too. It's in Sag. So, neither of them I don't think matter to each other. It's like, yeah, that's fine. But just to note that this, take a little note right now, what's going on in your life, because there might be a return of some of this in the beginning of May. And I'll just say it this way, it won't be Mars won't move out of this degree. It won't go into 7 degrees and beyond until May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you. May the 4th be with you. All right. So you got it. You got a little mental note there. When that day comes up and somebody says that, you go, oh, there was something. Oh, yeah. Yes, it was Mars. Yes, it's going to be out of that area that it's, been. It's like retrograded all the way back to Cancer and 17 degrees, and then let's move forward and it's finally out of that area. I'm sure you'll all be thinking about that. Oh God, golly, golly. Okay, so anyway, those are some of the things that I see right away. You just start looking at stuff. And let's move on. Move on. All right, tomorrow. Interesting now, we got the moon finishing up in Capricorn. It's going to conjunct this little group up here. So that's the next thing kind of I would like to look at. So we're going to bring some emotional tone, to Venus first, as the moon gets closer to Venus, um, maybe a serious, this could, Venus is, love or money. So a serious responsibility, a serious commitment in a relationship, being responsible, putting down boundaries that you'll stick to, drawing that line in the sand and having the balls to follow through. It's like, if you cross this, I'm going to pop you upside their head. And then they cross the line, you pop them upside the head or whatever. I'm just being funny. But this is like where, it's like a cardinal sign, and this is ruled by Saturn, so it means business. It's like, look, I'm not fooling. I'm not fooling around, and I'm right here next to Pluto. So you think I'm fooling? You think I'm wishy-washy? Mm-mm. So that's what's going to be happening. And then Venus will then, as it gets closer, it'll conjunct Pluto. But we're already feeling that orb. So it's kind of going to go from, I mean, it's both Saturn ruled, but it might be kind of like you could see the structure in something, but then, when it moves into Aquarius and goes over Pluto, you could get maybe the strength to face, like how do I say it? Not to face emotional fears. It's to carry through with it, to direct that 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 deep energy, into a higher cause, because it's going from Capricorn structure, the old conservatism to a more liberated, but not maybe liberal, but maybe more open, not so closed, something. It's still ruled by Saturn, though. Remember, it's not like pie in the sky. It's still like, it can get militant or um, uh, iconoclastic. Look at me being the savior for all, altruistic, or maybe investing in something structured and yet altruistic, maybe creating that in relationships. It's like, look, we gotta have good some structure, but yet we gotta have some breathing room and freedom at the same time. I think that hits a lot of, for me, that hits a lot of things for people as I'm thinking about it. People need to have their own boundaries, draw the line, and there it is again. If you cross this, this is what will happen. We have to create new boundaries, new barriers, because we have a whole new ball game going on. Okay, so that is I think a really big deal between today and tomorrow. And then the moon will go over that, and I think ping pong, drive that home. All right, what else is going on Wednesday? That's when we have the actual Mercury opposition uh, Jupiter. So uh, it could go either way, because they're both in the opposite places where they want to be. So they have that mutual reception. However, they're both in detriment. you know. So I don't know. That's just a very interesting dynamic there, especially with the sun. So there's like a lot more push. I think there can be a lot of exaggeration, maybe. A lot of things going over the top. And then Venus, it's got a nice sextile over to Neptune, also 27 degrees, and it's, water and earth. So there could again be a little deception or a little untruths or a little exaggeration, maybe a lot of exaggeration. Or maybe just really getting nailing things in there. Maybe there's some good conversation, the of Saturn, because the structure or the sextile between Venus and Neptune, I think because Venus is in a Saturn ruled sign, it's in Capricorn. I think it might be heptadelusion. It might be like, yeah, I smell you. I'm not falling for it. Uh, letting somebody walk themselves into a corner or into their own trap, something like that. I'm feeling that energy kind of a little bit more, because Venus is not, there it's way more practical. It's not, if it were in Taurus, I think it would be worse. So like it would be more into hedonism or being deceived or, saying, no, it's okay. Rather than, no, I don't think so. All right. A lot of that, I mean, there's certain things are coming on and yeah. And then we can see here we have this like a cradle pattern with these opposition here, Sun and Mercury and Jupiter, and then a square, Jupiter squaring over to Saturn, right? And then it's got a square and a half over to like Venus and the moon right here. So Jupiter is stressed. It's like Saturn is squaring it. The Sun and Mercury are opposing it. Moon and Venus are square and a half. So it's getting a lot of, and it's not in a happy place. It's not where it wants to be. So I think there's some curtailing of things maybe. Um, because it tends to get bloated, it tends to bloviate, it tends to blow things out of proportion. So with all of that stuff, all that seriousness going, hey, here, stop that. Don't do that. Sit down. It's like disciplining a dog. But having to have my dad's dog here and it's undisciplined. So I'm making friends with that, all that again. It's like, no, I said no, you sit down. And if you let it slide, it's going to make it harder. So you got to act. It's like, no, I said sit. Now lie down and stay there, whatever you're telling it. And it's like I try to lessen my voice or I'm more conversational, but sometimes you have to get ugly with your tone. I said, I said sit down, and the dog's like, yeah, okay. And then she's good for a while. But if I'm like, yeah, okay, sit, then it's like, no, it ain't gonna happen. And that's kind of like this energy in place. So we have, I think, a lot of curtailing of things maybe getting out of hand. I think, and I'm seeing a lot of that in the world right now. There's a lot of things being nipped in the bud. Well, maybe no, 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 no. It should have been nipped in the bud. I'm seeing a lot of pruning of the garden, of the draining of the swamp, pruning of the garden, getting rid of the overgrowth, putting checks and balances in place. Again, because this growth, it's just going to get out of hand, and then if we look at it like a medical astrology wise, this would be where, you know, tumors and cysts and things would grow. So it's like it has to be curtailed. It's like if you keep feeding something sugar and fat, it's going to grow cysts and tumors. So, we got to alkalize and stop that and, cut that supply off. And I think that's the best way I can understand this here. Because then we also have the sun and Mercury squaring over to Saturn, Saturn squaring over here. So we have this kind of this, we got this square going on. Um, a T-square pattern because we got, with Saturn being in the planet of power here, or, this is the one kind of putting in the structure. The only thing that bothers me about that is Saturn is in a mutable sign in Pisces, and it doesn't have quite the backbone that it normally does. However, um, uh, we have Venus in that nice disciplined cardinal Saturn ruled area. So let's just leave it at that. All right, we milked that a little bit, but sometimes there's a lot, and then there's like days where there's not a whole lot going on, or we just kind of in that interim. All right, Thursday. Thursday's kind of a quieter day. I mean, some of the stuff is still in place. Um, we have the sun and Mercury are combust that day. We see them both together right there, 14 degrees, and they're both still on approach. Well, Mercury has already passed, but the sun is still moving toward Jupiter, so we can still expect to have some curtailing going on there. Okay, what else? I think that is all. Talk about that. Oh, the moon is going to oppose Mars. Just interesting because, we have moon in Aquarius, calm, cool, collected moon opposing Mars, just having a lot of energy. So this might be like a cool hand Luke, a calm, cool, collected way of handling your energy, your mood. Maybe this will be a good way, to use some of this energy to fix some of the things that were retrograde, that you need to go back over from Mercury, because we have Mars at making the still this nice trine over to this group. So I think we can do that. Good day for that. Coming into the whole weekend, actually. And let's see, Friday, Mars goes retrograde. It's slowing down. So Mars is really strong, all week. Whenever a planet is, again, going retrograde, it's closest to Earth and it's stronger. It's just staying put, kind of. So Mars is very strong right now. It's very strong at, and if you have things at anything near 6 degrees, check, to see the aspects more for you. But yeah, that's there. Okay, so we have Mars retrograde, and then as I mentioned, it will be retrograde until February 25th. So it will go all the way back to 17 Cancer, and then it won't move out of this area again until May 4th. May the 4th be with you. And you'll think of Mars. Okay. What else is going on now? The moon nicely through Aquarius. And then it's going to go into Pisces. Coming into Saturday. Well, Venus, let me go back. It's going fast, and I have it set for quarter to 4:44. I love when triple numbers happen, and I just happened to go do the chart at that time, put it up there. But anyway, Friday into Saturday, depending on where you are, Venus will, it moves into Aquarius, and then it will go over Pluto in Aquarius. So very interesting. kind of having, I mean, into the air signs, this first conjunction of Venus now going over there when it's forward, it's going to give us, I think, a more feeling of liberation, a much more feeling of freedom, of moving forward, of maybe some kind of accomplishment, or maybe there is some hope. And then, with the Pisces moon, it just feels, it just will feel things more. And then going over Saturn, it puts that structure in there. So this will be an interesting day, you know. Um, I think it'd be using power wisely, using that depth, using that discernment. There's the word I want, using the discernment, Saturn, Pluto, using it responsibly to put in order, I think is where we're going with that. Yeah. What else here Saturday? Moon Pisces, we talked about that. Talk about that. Um, yeah, okay. Then the sun also is now making its total opposition over to Jupiter right there. And I just can't get I will get this straightened out soon. Okay, so here, so it's already it's there. So we have that perfected. I mean, it's been in place, all week, but the sun makes its opposition there. So I think the sun now is like when it's that way, I think it's like I'm shining the light on this. I'm shining the light on where we need to prune things back into the garden, where we need to curtail this excessive uh, energy here, this Jupiter, gone wild in Gemini. All right, anything else? Oh yeah, Neptune goes direct. Look, it's stationed. So we have planets, a lot of, planets changing signs and changing directions this week. So we know that whenever planets do that, we have a very dynamic week. Because they go for a while and then all of a sudden, nothing. But three, one, Venus changed signs, um, Mars and Neptune change directions. So big week. And then, coming in, we just had the Mercury, change direction. So a lot of stuff moving around. Um, yeah. Sunday. Well, other than a lot of the minor aspects, it's more of a quieter day. We've already talked about a lot of these, but Mars is now setting in some squares and a halves to the moon real quick. So it could be kind of a difference of energy feeling on Sunday and then over to the sun because he squares and a half there, and Pluto over to Mars. So Mars get a little bit of stressed on Sunday. Look at that. I mean, it's kind of like in, what was that? An interesting pattern, like a kite. It's almost a kite, like a little lopsided one. Do like that. Um, is there. All right. And then coming into Monday. Well, the moon moves into Aries for one thing. So we get, starting the week next week kind of with a bunch more energy. And then it sets off this trine here. The biggest thing I think was like, the moon goes over to North Node. So we have North Node in the moon making this trine over to Sun and Mercury. There's by a sign and then by degree, but Sun is still into the by sign, Mercury by degree, a little bit more. So we have this, and then as the moon moves, it'll hit exactly Mercury, and then they'll go over to Mars. So that's very interesting. Mercury, Mars, and the moon, all the M planets, Mercury, Mars, and the moon. So we have, moon in Aries, kind of it could be aggressive speech. Um, Mercury in Sag retrograde, expanded mind, looking over there, um, maybe anticipating it better, um, lying, fibbing, stretching the truth. Uh, and then Mars energy just to really to put in place for all of that. Maybe it's reviewing old plans, too. It's not always wise. I'm just kind of looking on a grand scale, but it could be reviewing old things, putting energy back into old plans, reviving things. Mars there, retrograding, Leo, and then Mercury retrograding in Sag. Well, we've got, that fire energy. Um, Maybe it's got to be put back into things that weren't done right the first place. maybe putting energy and order into or thought into things, Mercury, um, redoing redoing things or having the energy to face things. It may not be outward, it may be inward too. All right. What else? Oh, the moon is interesting. The moon will make sextiles, that day, as it moves into Aries over to, it'll make a nice conversation over to showing here, Pluto and Venus. So you may have like a feeling of empowerment, maybe of emotional empowerment, because we've got this elevated to a higher level, and then that action Aries, moon, um, getting more empowered by that higher mind or that higher frame of mind, because Aquarian kind of sees things from a whole different perspective, from a betterment of humanity. So maybe doing things that are more for the good for all, um, maybe be hitting, coming up. And then the moon will also trine Mars and Mercury there. We already talked about that. So a lot of good energy coming on that. And I think we should use this, because we've gone through a lot, and we're still kind of, there's some unsettled things, but I think things are definitely getting exposed. There's some key players being put in place. Let's just leave it at that, in the political realm, some things are definitely being stirred up and be interesting rides. So again, remember these dates, remember what's going on in your life now, and just work it accordingly. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Thank you. Bye for now.